Direct mail. You can use letters or postcards. There's a couple different types of letters. People have heard of the yellow letter, and you've also heard of a print, kind of a professional business letter, and you've also heard about sort of a bill letter. So I use a combination of all of those. I like to hit the same people 3 or 4 times with their mailing, and I'll use a yellow letter, then a postcard, and another postcard, depending on who I'm targeting. So I target 2 types of individuals. The first one are homeowners that have been in the property for a long time, as long as you can figure out from your county records. And the second group are absentee landlords. Those are people that have the property, they might be tired of having it. You can combine those and say landlords that have owned it more than 10 years, but sometimes landlords have only owned it for a couple of years and something happens in their life. They move, they get sick, there's a job opening someplace else, and they really want to sell their property, or they have a couple kids and they just don't have time. So you can target those 2 types of people: absentee owners and people who've been in their property for a long time. A long time is more than 10 years. So that's what you want to look for. So let me check down at my notes here. So when you do the yellow letter, that is done on a yellow pad of paper. This is a little difficult to implement. It kind of works on your printer, or you can outsource it. You can handwrite the letter and then copy it onto yellow paper. I found yellow paper doesn't always go through my printer, but if I go to Kinko's, I can rip off the pages from a yellow pad of paper, and it will go through the Kinko's printer better than it will do mine. So I've done that before. The other letter is kind of a business letter that's, I'm a San Diego real estate investor looking to buy properties here. That's another one. The other one is a similar letter, but it's put in a different envelope because it's put in a business envelope. So, and I'll show you a few examples of those. And the other one I use is postcards. So the postcards, I usually use the service called Click to Mail. And I'll definitely give credit where credit's due. I learned about that from Chris Chico. You can find out his course on chrischico.com. I think he has one right now for, I think, $97. So it gives the postcard and exactly the details of how to do it. So you first need a relationship with your title company if you're going to get a free list. If you're going to go to ListSource, you're going to pay per name for the list, maybe 10 cents a name. I have a relationship with a title company. I can pull 1,500 names or records a month, and that's more than plenty to get started. Because what you do with absentee landlords and also regular owners who've been in there a long time is you mail to them 4 times a year. So you're mailing to them quite often. So you pull the names once and you just keep using the same list. So you can find a relationship with a title company, tell them you want to farm, you want a farming list, and they'll set you up. I know with Chicago Title, I can do it right online. I don't have to contact them anymore. It's an online situation. All right. So what do I do with that letter? I put it in a regular, plain old, envelope. And I'll show you a couple of examples of the envelopes that I use. So you use an envelope, you use a return address label, and kind of a fancy stamp. I don't use the flag stamps. They're too basic. I want a nice big picture stamp that people notice. And then you hand address the envelope. I mean, you can find someone on Craigslist to hand address it. I have my kids hand address them. Sometimes if I'm watching something on TV, I will hand address a bunch of envelopes. Very easy to outsource that. You need to fold them up. Another way, and stuff them, put the stickers on. Kids love putting the stickers on, by the way. That's a fun thing for them. The other thing you can do is do what they call lumpy mail. So in lumpy mail, you put something in the envelope that makes it feel tactile. You can feel something's weird about the envelope. Hold up an envelope while I'm doing that. And if someone goes, oh, I wonder what's in there, and they want to open the envelope. So what are 2 things I put in lumpy mail? One is sometimes I very simply just put a paper clip right on the letter and fold it up. Sometimes I put a Post-it note on there. If I want to remind them something, I stick the Post-it note on with the paper clip, and then they can stick the Post-it note on their fridge. You can put in candy, but it has to be really thin. Now, the post office has a lot of different requirements. So I've gone to some of these little foam stickers that you can buy at Michael's, Walmart, a big container of foam stickers. And sometimes they sell them cheaply when they're out of season. So these are kind of like the landscape ones. And I put that piece of foam in the envelope, and it makes people open it up. So what does the envelope look like? I've got it. I can't show the address on here, but here's what happens when the envelope comes back. So let me show that to you. You see a return address label on the top and a nice fancy stamp. So I used several return address labels. That was kind of a house one. Here's another one that came back. And that one is my spring flower one. And the other return address label, this is kind of the one for barbecuing. Looks like you're doing a summer barbecue. So how do I get all these different labels, and how do I do it inexpensively? Well, I use Avery labels online, and I usually buy the labels from Office Depot. I don't buy the Avery labels. The Office Depot ones are actually cheaper. You can buy a big package of them in bulk. And you do your design on averylabels.com, and you just print them on your own printer. You can pick any picture you want. You can upload a picture, and you put your return address on there. Now, when I put the return address, let me show you this one again. You see my address there. I've put apartment C. It's really a suite C, but I want people to think it comes from an individual person, so they'll open it up and not a business. So I put apartment C. It still comes back to my mailbox. All these letters came back to my mailbox, okay, because they had the wrong address on them. When you're using addresses from the title company, they're coming from the people's tax records. So this is the address where they mail the tax bill to. And if people don't update their address when they move, especially if it's a rental property and they're moving their home address, the tax bill may not come to them the next year. They may have to, go, call the county and pay for it or whatever and make it forwarded to them. So they have to update their home address for their rental properties in order to receive the mail. Okay, so that's the first thing. That's what the envelopes look like. So what do I do? How do I get the list? When I get the list, it's usually in an Excel spreadsheet. And what I do is do a mail merge with that. I mail merge the addresses that I want to put on the envelopes, but I don't put them on address labels. I just mail merge them as if they're address labels, and I just run them through the printer with as if they're return address labels, and I just use regular paper. So I'm going to flash it real quickly up here because I can't show you the addresses. So that's one that I've done, and that's one of the lists I've used. So as I go through it and hand address the envelopes, I can just put a check mark when I've mailed them. So you'll see that one had quite a few check marks because I've done that list 3 or 4 times. If you see a red yellow circle, that's because it came back and had the wrong address. So as soon as it comes back, I circle it, and then I take a bunch of them at once and spend time looking up online and trying to find, what the person's new address is using these different, white pages or people search or something like that, people tracker. You can get an account for, I think, $39 to look up as many addresses as you want. So that's my address label. The business letter, I'll show it to you. I don't have any yellow letter examples right in front of me. I think they're over there. So I have kind of a business letter, and you do have to sign it. You should sign it in blue ink. That's what I just showed you. And you just fold that and put it in the envelope. And then the last thing I put on is the stamp. You really don't want to put the stamp on ahead of time, because what if you mess up the envelope? So the stamp's the last thing because that's the thing you paid for. So you put that on it at the end and send them all out. So that's how you do your mailings. You've got to pick your area, pick your street, go through the title company, get your list, print it out as if it's going to be on address labels, but you just print it on regular paper so you can write on it. You also go to Avery Labels and do your return addresses labels, put those on every envelope. Then you hand address, stuff the envelope, use a paper clip or a little foam dealie or a thin piece of candy, whatever you want to make people curious to open it up. I think at Easter once we put some of that, the green grass that you use in Easter, we stuffed a little bit in each envelope and it just kind of made it a little thicker. People wanted to open it. So it was a fun project. Okay, so that's direct mail. I send out letters. I sometimes use the yellow letter or the business letter there. And, you know, the heading is, I'm a San Diego investor looking to buy your San Diego property. I also do the postcards. I use a modified version of the postcard from Chris Chico. The other thing you're going to want to need is a phone. You can use a Google Voice phone number. That can be forwarded to your house phone, your cell phone, your partner's cell phone. You can forward it to wherever you want. So Google Voice number is free. You can also buy a track phone that has a local number and just have that number being used in your letters. In that way, your letters, when people call that phone, you're only paying for the calls that they make. So you don't have a monthly charge. The phone's just sitting there waiting for it to ring, you know, and you know if someone calls that number that it's from the letter, so you can answer it right away. So you have to carry that extra track phone around with you. That's another inexpensive way, you know, to have another phone without an expensive monthly phone service. The other service I use is Grasshopper. You can get an 800 number or just a regular local number, and you can plug in some scripts that will speak to the homeowner when they call the number, and then it can forward to your phone as well. So those are the services that I use in association with my direct mail. It's really one of the biggest and best ways to get good deals. People call me from those letters. Most of the deals that I get did not come from the MLS or realtors because they're a little more expensive when they come through a realtor. As soon as you have a little bit of money just to buy the stamps, start doing that direct mail. If you're going to stuff the letters yourself, go ahead, do 100, 200, 300 at a time and be able to handle the calls as they come in. Don't do as many, do 300 a week. Make that your goal. Don't outsource it at first because that costs more. You're just going to pay for the stamps initially. So, 50 cents a letter. All right. And that is the best way for you guys to find some deals.